Would a great innovator give up so easily on that promised future?
I won't. I'll find a way to save us all.
Welcome guys, End of Dragons Daily, drumroll, 100! Wow, we're here already, 100 episodes. Boots asked me if I was going to do something special. I'm not. We've still got a lot of topics to get through from the End of Dragons live stream itself. We're stuffed with things to do, why complicate things? Today, we'll be talking about fishing, which was one of the big reveals from the stream. It's something that I think a lot of us have been looking for in the MMO for a while, and I kind of want to give you guys my take on it, and also show a lot of the community response. Background for this one, I'll put the faction soundtrack on. We've been listening to a lot of the End of Dragons soundtrack already over the past few episodes. I don't want to overdo it. And footage, I guess we'll go back to running around Corteria. I did even more graphics optimization and managed to reduce my gameplay latency by like a ton. I'm actually thinking of completely updating my gain frames and improve graphics video, because there's a lot of other stuff you can do which I think people deserve to learn about. In any case, let's run through some community response on the topic of fishing, and then I'll give you my take. Now, there are people that enjoy fishing, but the overwhelming majority of these messages are kind of meh about it. Beyond that, you're also going to notice a theme, which is really the main thing I want to talk about in this video. So, let's go through. First of all, nobody says, I just don't get it. I don't get why fishing is something people are so stoked for. I've never done it in any MMO, and from what I've heard, games that have it, most players are just AFK fishing the whole time. It's just something to do while AFKing that people want. Beetle Buns says, I just want my damn skiff already. I will never travel by land again. The boats, fishing, and hunting were the only reasons I play BDO sometimes, and with Guild Wars 2 getting 2 of the 3, I'm having less and less reason to play BDO over Guild Wars 2, and I like that. So more of a positive response here. This is a little bit more on the skiff side of things, which I'm not going to be talking about very much today, only because skiffs to me are just this explosion of unanswered questions, and I'm not sure how much tangible stuff I've got to talk about. We'll get to those shortly. Jason Hall says, oh goodness, please no fishing minigame. That's my least favorite part of any game. There's a legendary evil rising, a galaxy-shattering war, memory of my grandfather to attend to, but let's take this time to go fishing, and when it becomes tied to completing the main objective of the game, like Zelda, Twilight Princess, Warframe, or Stardew Valley, I become even more irritated. I actually think this is a pretty terrible take here, Jason. First of all, Stardew is not a game with a main objective. I mean, Stardew is about embracing any number of different things you can do, like, it's like progressive leisure. That's what Stardew is, right? That's a very, very odd mindset to go into a game like that. But the thing is, MMOs are huge, and they need side activities. They need more casual things. Guild Wars 2 is already full of that stuff anyway, so what's adding another thing to the pile? Especially if it's a well-implemented one. Anyway, continuing on, we got Cashin Sins, who says, I gotta be honest, I'm pretty disappointed by what I've seen from End of Dragons. Maybe I've just been spoiled by FF14, which has risen my bar to admittedly unrealistic heights, but if fishing is literally the big thing being added in, I'm thinking I'll just pass and watch you play at WP. It's a shame, I'd love to come back, but just nothing seems to wow me. I hope there's more they add, fingers crossed. Ethan says, as for fishing, I think I'd like to point out they haven't revealed any mechanics of how it's actually done. Most other MMOs, fishing is an almost AFK snorefest, but also most other MMOs, mounts are just various skins of a mechanic that makes you move faster. What I'm saying is hopefully the devs will be able to blow us out of the water with their implementation of fishing, like they did with Guild Wars 2's mounts. I doubt fishing could ever be as much of a crowd pleaser as mounts, but I'm remaining optimistic that the devs will do something unique and interesting with Guild Wars 2's take on fishing, especially if it's something they're expecting players to do a lot of repeatedly, and presumably on any map that has Liquid going forward. Ed says, I mean, fishing a default feature in any other MMO, but Guild Wars 2 mark it as a feature and a special highlight. Marin Grape says if fishing is really supposed to be the big thing, comparable to a whole new class like the Rev, elite specs, and a new progression system, masteries, as in Heart of Thorns, or to a real game changer like mounts in POF, this is utterly ridiculous. I hope the Heart of Thorns-like replayability of the maps will be there, and a whole lot of the story and fun tasks, or this might be the worst expansion and a true disappointment. I understand that a new class or a new race like the Tengu is difficult to create, but it just does not add up to what we've had before. Darth Clan says, if fishing is the new main feature, I'm honestly disappointed and pissed. What a stupid decision. Mad Meek says, if fishing is the big thing, then how sad. It would just be something add-on, just as it is in WoW. Only completionists will care. And finally, AJ Quastake, and you guys get the picture. No new class, no new race, no new weapons. Really? Fishing? I'm absolutely done with this game. No point in waiting for a new race when the studio itself doesn't have the balls to make it. No wonder it's falling behind all other MMOs. Good luck getting new players to play this crap. Well, leaving on that one, they have a very, very negative slant here. Okay, so I picked a lot of these comments because, I mean, really, these are just a drop in the bucket compared to the vast ocean of messages about fishing. But this is the general theme I'm seeing predominantly come up. It's not to say that some people don't enjoy them. We had like that person a second ago who said, look, I really enjoy it in BDO. There are real-life fishing enthusiasts that are looking forward to playing it. For me, even personally, I'm totally lukewarm on fishing. I like it in, most really big, good RPGs I play. It's not just about MMOs, but they have some kind of fishing feature. And in fact, a lot of new games that I've played over the past 2-3 years have done fishing really well. The two that stand out in my mind, like everyone has their point of comparison, and I believe we're obviously talking about fishing on End of Dragons Daily just a month or so ago, a month and a half ago, when it was kind of this more speculative thing. I think back then I talked about Stardew Valley. But the big ones in my mind really are Monster Hunter World and Sea of Thieves. I think those games did fishing really well, but when I analyze what I enjoy about them, is it the mechanics of the bait, and is it the mechanics of how you actually pull the fish up and so on? Or is it more just how fishing fit into the broader product? Is it because fishing felt so relaxed and so different and gave you a different kind of vibe and moment to relax in these Monster Hunter maps that otherwise I'm always participating in these ridiculous epic hunt scenarios? In Sea of Thieves, is it about the specific mechanics of how I bait and wrangle up a fish? Or is it that it fits so perfectly into the regular gameplay loop of going out there, you're on the open ocean, there's a little bit of downtime, it feels like something useful you can do, and it just seamlessly integrates into the overall immersive atmosphere and experience that game offers. By the way, I do just want to note, Sea of Thieves is the most ArenaNet game I have ever played that obviously didn't come from ArenaNet. Everything about like their sense of not having a progression system that is horizontal or stat-based in nature, about embracing competitivity but allowing people generally to avoid it, about not playing the UI and actually experiencing the game immersively. Like, it's incredible. I can't believe the turnaround that Rare's had. I absolutely adore that game, and I recommend it to any Guild Wars fan. Go in as blind as you possibly can. So fishing, I think, really is about the broader game. And when I look at Guild Wars 2, a game that already has a bunch of collections, already has a bunch of general downtime things for me to do, i.e. sit around in maps, chat to people, AFK largely while I'm in World Boss trains, play Belcher's Bluff, play Costume Brawl, play Roller Beetle Racing, mess with skins and dyes, tinker with my builds. I really do find myself wondering, where does fishing slot in? And especially on that idea of how is it really useful to me? I think there are a lot of people in that position right now, if you're on the more veteran end of the game, where you're thinking, well, is this just a really flavorful mastery that ultimately culminates in a collection? And actually, there's kind of a worrying moment in the stream where it sounds like that might be exactly what it is to me. If it's that, then I'm kind of cynical as to how much I'll enjoy it, because I don't think it will be that integrated into my gameplay patterns. There's another thing that's really unfortunate going on here, and it's the Icebrood Saga. I feel like the Icebrood Saga has kicked the future prospects of Guild Wars 2 in the teeth in so many ways. And you know, one final little punch I think it's just offered the team here? See, as I mentioned on a recent End of Dragons daily discussion when we were looking at fishing the first time, I gave you guys all these dev quotes about how they specifically avoided doing any kind of fish-based cooking recipes because the idea was that they'd leave space for it later. And then once Ascended Crafting came in, it obviously became the idea that fish-based recipes could come with fishing at a Cooking 500 thing all at once. But then comes the Icebrood Saga that says, no, we're not doing expansions at all. We're just going to try and do these big features and sell them as a matter of course during Living World. What was one of the first things they did? Cooking 500. A few months later, there's a U-turn and we're back to expansions. So what's really unfortunate is we could be in a world right now where Cooking 500 and Ascended foods don't exist, and it would be a really natural, easy thing to say on the End of Dragons announcement, hey, Fishing is coming, Cooking 500 is coming, Ascended Foods are coming. It has all the budget and weight and development time of an expansion. We're going to tie them all together beautifully. But that's not the world we live in. We live in the world where we kind of already have Ascended Foods, and the idea that, okay, Ascended fish-based food are just going to have a slightly different perk, it doesn't ring as exciting. I also look at all the stuff about crafting Ascended Foods and my little garden in my home instance, and the fact that I hardly ever use that stuff, and I've basically forgotten most of the mechanics there, as another bad sign that, you know, maybe they won't be that compelling about the fishing side of things. Though, again, I do believe that because fishing is coming in the next pack, it will have a lot more meat to it, and they can do fun things. Like, I've seen you guys in the comments suggest this a few times. What this really is not a discipline, obviously. It's not even really a mastery and a collection. I mean, they can gate it behind that. They can have a collection to go for, and they can gate it behind a mastery. But really what I view this as is a gathering mechanic, which ArenaNet have never expanded on. Now, I don't know what they're doing with the expansion, obviously, but I feel like if they're going in this direction, this is what I would have focused on talking about on the stream, because this actually does feel kind of new. You know, we have a pickaxe, and we have a logging tool, and we have a harvesting tool. Well, we might get a 4th slot, guys, for gear, and that might be a fishing rod. And that's actually quite exciting to me, because that's new itemization. And, you know, for many of us vets, even casual players, we don't really think anymore about the world in which we had only a black steel mining pick, and then we tiered it up to something better, and we tiered it up, and we tiered it up. A lot of us have, like, those as gem store skins and so on at this point. But what I really like about the progression phase in RPGs is as you do slowly upgrade your tills, which allow you to get at better nodes, they can do that, but purely defined within a level 80 space, because it's coming with a level 80 expansion, and I think that means that they can play with it in a lot of fun ways. You look at what they did with, say, Ascended bags and new kinds of bags and stuff over the past few years with their Living World releases. A lot of those kinds of item and systems that they've now kind of exhausted can start looking into new kinds of fishing rods that fish at different speeds and are capable of getting different kinds of fish and so on and so on. You know, again, we can look to any other number of games for inspiration on how you might be able to do that. Not to mention how a glyph might impact, say, a fishing rod. The whole idea of gathering tools, I think, even when you look at the existing ones and the existing kinds of nodes, is something that I'd like to see the studio improve on at some point. I don't know whether that's really an End of Dragons thing, but there's a lot of untapped potential there, and so I do kind of believe that that might be what they're going for. So, yeah, I think they can do fun things with fishing. It's all about the details, which unfortunately we didn't get many of. You're going to hear me say that with a lot of these big features that were announced on the stream, like the Siege Turtle. And it's not that I think it's bad for the game, but I do think, and now here's the big thing that I want to talk about here. I do think most people in the community have the wrong expectation. And I think that the framing of this stream has kind of set a lot of us astray. It's done a disservice to the idea of what fishing really is. It's as someone said a second ago, in most MMOs, fishing is a little bit more of a side feature. And when we have people saying, oh, I'm not that excited, but they did an amazing job with innovating on mounts, so they're obviously going to do something great for fishing, I think we have to be careful. What's the commonality between most of the comments I highlighted here at the start of the video? It's not their negativity. It's that they think it's a headliner feature. Now, this is the thing I kind of take issue with. I think the community's in a weird place right now, where we've only ever had 2 expansions, and both those expansions have been transformative. They've been transformative by necessity. Heart of Thorns had a lot of infrastructure to add to work out and address the woes and the lackluster elements of endgame at core. So it was a transformative expansion. We had gliding, which was kind of this big, marketable, easy thing to understand, but the elite specialization, the mastery system in general, these were big initiatives, and they shook the game up a lot. So now people kind of think, oh, Guild Wars 2 expansions shake up the game. Path of Fire comes along and reinforces that idea. It doesn't have to be true that expansions shake up the game, but Path of Fire comes along and it does it in a major way. It takes something from other MMOs, it identifies the problems there, and it does them better than any other MMO. It does it with mounts, and again, it's a big transformative expansion. Even though, if you guys were there with me during the Path of Fire press, you will remember the studio saying that that expansion was about content rather than systems. Even though that was the big thing, what we all remember, really, is how transformative mounts were. So now we're in a world where End of Dragons is coming out. And I want to make a case to you guys. I want to say this live stream could have announced no features at all. It could have not had skiffs. It could have not had fishing. It could have not had playable Tengu, which it didn't. It could have had nothing. Let's just imagine that it had nothing. I would say, even in that world, there is a universe of possibility that End of Dragons is 1,000,000 times worse than the previous expansions, or 1,000,000 times better than the previous expansions. Because what it's really about is not transforming the MMO at every opportunity. Eventually, we're going to have to decide, what do we believe Guild Wars 2 is? Are we actually satisfied with this game and what it's offering? And I think that point can already be now. What End of Dragons can be is a lot of really great, meaty maps, dense with content, vast in size, that gives you a really long, good, lengthy story that isn't cut by development crunch, as the later acts of POF were and his Heart of Thorns were, that gives really well-balanced, interestingly themed, beautifully animated elite specializations, that gives rich and interesting masteries. I mean, these kind of skirt into the feature idea, but bear with me here, it is kind of like a baseline element of the game. And basically, they just do the content well. At some point, you have to decide, do I like Guild Wars 2's content? Do I like the systems that they are focused on? That's why if you watch my Strike video, you'll see I was so focused on them acknowledging hardcore endgame, because they don't satisfy that, and that's a place where the game still needs to find its feet. What I'm saying is the expansion should be about delivering content. What this stream could have been is a lot closer to, say, what we saw them doing for press back at Core. Does anyone remember before Guild Wars 2 came out? Anyone out there in the community? Some of my favorite things were when they went to a convention demo and they sat a dev down who was like a driver, and they made a new character, and they ran with that new character through the early hearts in Queensdale, and they played the game, and then they showed off Divinity's Reach, and then they cut to Blaze Ridge, and they played a little bit of Blaze Ridge, and then they showed off the Shatterer. They just played the game, while one dev was playing, the other was talking about everything that they were seeing. This stream didn't do any of that, so we don't have any of those details. We don't get that, like, good feeling of thinking, wow, this is just going to be fun. It doesn't need to be transformative. I'm excited. Like, look at the POF start as well. Imagine that feeling you had when you first were on that airship, flying as it was towards the exploding pyramids. You probably weren't thinking at that time, oh, POF needs 5 major features, otherwise it's going to flop in some way. The whole game needs to transform. You were probably just breathing in and excited that finally you had new content to play, and it looked like it was of a really high, new, fresh quality. That's all that mattered. And that's all that really matters, I think, with End of Dragons as well. So when we come to fishing, and we see all of these disappointed people saying, wow, this is the headliner feature, I don't think that's the right way to think of it. I think they're just going to try and do a good expansion, and that's all that they need to do. And on the side, just as MMOs do, they'll put fishing in at the same time, because it's something they can prop up. And they'll put skiffs in at the same time, because it's something they can prop up. And whatever else that we see. And that's really the way that I view this live stream. And so even if fishing is terrible, guys, even if it is what I would consider the worst case scenario, where it's just press F on node, stand around for, it's like a really long channel as you mine, basically. And all you're doing it for is a collection that is based on high RNG, right? That's the worst case scenario to me. Even if it's that, I'm not really that bothered, because to me, what End of Dragons lives or dies on is the content itself, the main systems. Because I've made the decision already, I know already that I am satisfied with those core experiences that they're offering in this game. I don't need expansions to be transformative anymore. I just need regular, reliable content of a high quality, which I believe the expansion format does better than Living World, and that's why I like expansions. I don't like expansions because they'll do something like mounts every time, and I don't think that they need to. All that said, I do think there are some concepts that are so big and so profound they would be incredible to pursue, like I think a lot of us feel with the new Tengu idea, but that doesn't mean everything they add has to be transformative. So that's my thoughts on fishing, really, and the state of the expansion in general. I do encourage anyone in these comments here at the start, or who just has that mindset, oh, fishing has to be this big thing and I don't like fishing, to maybe reassess or punch back at me in the comments. Let's see it. Let's see what you have to say. I'll be very keen on that. I don't really need questions from you guys on this End of Dragons Daily. There you go. That's what's special about number 100. I no longer care about your opinions at all. The reason for that is because the next part is going to be the trailer analysis. Gonna see what I think about all of that. Actually, I do have a question for you guys. We don't know the name of the Asura that appears at the start of all this new wave of End of Dragons Daily, right? And was in the trailer. Someone said they're called Arca or something. It's not Arca, is it? I have a theory about who it might be. It's based on a Guild Wars 2 Mysteries that I wanted to do a little while ago. So yeah, it should be a pretty fun trailer analysis. I'll see you guys for that. That'll be the next part very soon. Take care now. Let me know what you think. All jokes aside, that is. And I'll see you next time.